Sierra's voice was too quiet, which is how I knew this was a nuclear moment. We were 3 weeks out from the event. The $25,000 venue deposit was paid, the custom invitations were sent, and the seating chart was stressing me out. And she was dropping an unnegotiable, non-starter ultimatum. She wasn't yelling. She was perfectly composed, sitting across the teak dining table we'd just bought. That calm, calculated chill was the true danger. I, Alex Thorne, 38, a tech consultant who had actually managed to save and invest intelligently for once, felt my jaw lock up. We were looking out over Lake Michigan from my place, a $1.2 million condo I'd bought 6 years ago, long before I met her. That condo was the real issue. The lakefront condo, the stock accounts, the whole portfolio, darling, she continued, setting her wine glass down with a delicate clink. Her eyes, usually that honey gold I loved, were suddenly metallic and hard. It all needs to be joint tenancy, or we don't walk down that aisle. Not until the name Sierra Vance has legal weight on every single substantial asset you own. I need security, Alex. A proposal is a promise, but a signed deed is a guarantee. You have exactly 1 week to make the necessary changes with your lawyer. 1 week. She'd gone from arguing about linen colors to demanding half my life's work in 7 days. This wasn't about a responsible prenup, which I was perfectly happy to sign. This was about outright ownership before the rings were exchanged. It finally hit me. This wasn't Sierra talking. This was the voice of Evelyn, her mother, the woman who viewed every wealthy man as a potential retirement fund. I didn't argue. I didn't even raise my voice. I just pulled out my phone right there at the dinner table and put on the thinnest, coldest smile I could manage. She mistook it for surrender. You know what, Sierra? You have a point, I said, my voice smooth and level. Security is absolutely paramount. I understand completely. She actually looked relieved. Oh, thank God. I knew you'd see reason. I do, I confirmed, scrolling past my wedding planner's number and hitting the speed dial for Oceanic Cruises. The $25,000 deposit for the grand ballroom at the Azure Estate was about to be creatively reallocated. Yes, hi. I'd like to book a private suite for a one-person sailing on the Pacific Dream next month. I spoke into the phone, loud enough for her to hear every word. Can we use the full credit from an existing event cancellation under the name Alex Thorne, the one scheduled for November 18th? Yes, please cancel the ballroom reservation. I'd like to repurpose the credit immediately. The look on her face, pure, unadulterated, catastrophic horror, was better than any wedding gift. The clock on her 1 week ultimatum had just started ticking backward on a whole new set of terms. We met about a year and a half ago. I was 38, she was 30. I'd spent most of my 30s single, focusing on my career and that condo, which was my pride and joy. Sierra was stunning, worked in luxury PR, and seemed to genuinely love my slightly nerdy sense of humor. 6 months in, she moved into the condo. After a year, I proposed on a romantic weekend trip to Napa. The ring was expensive, the yes was immediate, and the Instagram post was up before we finished dinner. Everything was great until we had that fateful Sunday lunch with her mom, Evelyn. Evelyn is one of those women who weaponizes concern. She was widowed years ago, and she treats Sierra less like a daughter and more like a human financial instrument. We were talking about my professional success when Evelyn leaned in, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Alex, dear, Sierra tells me your condo is paid off. That's fantastic. But have you thought about what happens to your assets if something unexpected happens before the wedding? I kept a pleasant, neutral expression. I have a will, Evelyn. Everything goes to my nephew, Leo. Her smile froze. That's short-sighted. You're about to marry my daughter. Shouldn't she be protected? You should put her name on the deed now, as a gesture of good faith. I glanced at Sierra. She was suddenly fascinated by the texture of her pasta. With respect, Evelyn, those matters are for Sierra and me to discuss, and we'll handle it with a solid prenup after the marriage. We don't need a prenup if we trust each other, Alex. And if you trust her, you should show it now. We left shortly after, and the car ride home was silence, then passive aggression. Mom has a point, Sierra finally whispered. No, she absolutely does not. She's talking about giving away assets before the legal framework of marriage is even established. But if you died tomorrow, I'd be homeless. You wouldn't. We'd sort out life insurance and the will after the wedding, as is normal. We aren't married, Sierra. I don't legally owe you my property. That became the theme for the next 3 months. Every argument, every casual dinner discussion eventually circled back to the condo deed. Her cousin got added to a trust fund. Her coworker's fiancé gifted her a car. Every example was a subtle test that I was failing. Then came the showdown on Monday, the ultimatum, and my phone call. After I hung up the phone, I looked at Sierra. She was still sitting there, eyes wide, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the edge of the table. Did you just cancel our wedding? She managed, her voice cracking. No, Sierra, I replied, standing up. I just transferred the $25,000 deposit into a non-refundable one-person cruise package for myself. They called it an adventure of self-discovery. The Azure Estate is off the books. I'm protecting my investment from becoming a battleground for a wedding that, as you just pointed out, is contingent on me signing over my home. You made your boundary clear. I'm setting mine. The wedding is off until we have a real conversation, one that doesn't involve threats or deeds. She stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. You are incredible. You would rather waste $25,000 than share 5% of your house with your future wife? I'd rather waste $25,000 than find out a month after the wedding that my wife is trying to seize my premarital property. I shot back, the control finally slipping. You showed me your priorities, paper over partnership. And now, I've shown you mine. You have 1 week to decide if you love me or if you love what I own. If you want the wedding back on, you drop the ultimatum and we talk prenup and long-term planning like adults. No more Evelyn. 1 week, your countdown starts now. I walked into the home office, locked the door, and spent the night documenting everything. The lawyer's contacts, the paper trail of the condo purchase, and the venue transfer confirmation. I didn't sleep. The next morning, she left for work without a word. I called in sick, a rare, monumental event, and spent the day getting my legal affairs in order. I called my lawyer, Richard, who had been urging me to protect my assets since the engagement. We drafted a new, very precise will that clearly excluded Sierra from any premarital property, effective immediately. We also drafted a legal notice to the Azure Estate venue, reinforcing that the contract was solely mine and that only I could make future changes. 3 days later, I was in the office when I got an email. It wasn't from Sierra. It was from a law firm I didn't recognize, attached to a document titled Demand for Equitable Interest. The letter, clearly instructed by Evelyn, claimed that because Sierra had lived in my condo for 18 months, contributed to the utilities, and made significant emotional contributions to the relationship, including planning a lavish wedding, she was entitled to immediate co-ownership of the condo, the truck, and 50% of my non-retirement savings. It demanded I comply within 7 days, mirroring her own ultimatum. I didn't call Sierra. I didn't call Evelyn. I called Richard. Richard was calm. They have zero standing, Alex. Zero. She's not even a common law wife in this state. But this is their power move. They're trying to leverage the wedding stress and social pressure to make you sign out of fear. Not happening, I said. I want a counter. I want this to stop now. We can send a cease and desist, but that will just escalate the fight. Good, I said. Send it. And also, send them an invoice for 18 months of fair market rent, minus the token amount she paid for utilities. We'll argue she's a tenant who overstayed her welcome, not a partner with equity. That same day, I went home. Sierra was packing luggage in the master bedroom, her face streaked with tears. Evelyn was standing over her, barking instructions. You really did it, you coward, Evelyn spat when she saw me. You sent a lawyer after my daughter after she just asked for basic security? I responded to your lawyer, Evelyn. Your firm sent a fraudulent demand for my property. That's harassment. Now, unless you'd like an eviction notice served on your daughter, I suggest you take your demands and your luggage and leave my private residence immediately. Sierra, you had 1 week to choose between the deed and the relationship. You chose the deed. You're done. Sierra looked up, holding a garment bag. You're really ending it over a piece of paper? No. I'm ending it because you showed me that my love is conditional upon my complete financial submission. And then you weaponized your mother's lawyer against me. That is not a partnership. That is a hostile takeover. I stood there and watched them both walk out, Evelyn pausing only to call me a financially abusive snake. I just locked the door and called the building manager to change the access codes immediately. Her 1 week countdown ended that night. The fallout was immediate and social. Within 48 hours, Sierra had posted a long, tearful statement on Facebook, claiming I'd stolen the wedding deposit, abandoned her, and was an emotionally and financially abusive control freak who hid my wealth. My comment section was a disaster zone. People I barely knew, friends of friends, her work contacts were calling me a thief and a commitment phobe. She had framed it perfectly. The cruel rich guy who pulled the rug out. I showed my lawyer the post. Defamation, he confirmed, but suing her will be expensive and messy. We can counter with facts, and that's what I did. I posted a concise, brutal rebuttal. No emotion, just documents. For the record and for those judging. The relationship ended when Sierra, at the explicit instruction of her family, issued a 1 week ultimatum demanding co-ownership of my premarital condo and investment accounts well before the wedding. The abandonment was me requesting she leave my home after her family sent a legal demand for my assets. I did not steal the $25,000 wedding deposit. I legally repurposed the joint deposit into a non-refundable, single-occupancy travel credit, protecting the funds from being seized by her family. Attached are the lawyer's demand letter and the venue's cancellation / credit transfer confirmation. The response was instantaneous. Once people saw the letterhead and the demand for co-ownership before marriage, the narrative flipped. Comments shifted from, "You are scum," to, "Wait, she actually sent a lawyer for his house?" and "Dodged a bullet, Alex." The truth, backed by paperwork, always works better than a tearful Facebook post. Sierra's friends quickly deleted their comments. Her post vanished within 24 hours. A week later, I got a text from Evelyn. "You have humiliated my daughter. You will regret this." I just replied, "I regret not doing it sooner. It's been 6 months now. The whole situation is a surreal memory. I took the solo cruise, actually. It was the most peaceful week of my life. I sat on the deck, looked out at the Pacific, and toasted myself for spending $25,000 on the cheapest, most effective education I could have ever received on boundaries and self-worth." Through mutual contacts, I heard Sierra had moved back in with Evelyn, claiming she was taking time off from her career to heal from my betrayal. I felt a quick, fleeting pang of something like guilt, but it vanished instantly when I remembered the lawsuit threat. The most bizarre detail came from an old college friend of Sierra's who reached out to me. She explained that Evelyn had been cut out of her own late husband's will. Sierra's father because of their messy separation right before his death. Evelyn had received nothing and had been financially bitter ever since. She had been drilling the necessity of securing the assets into Sierra for years, determined that her daughter wouldn't end up like her. It wasn't about security for Sierra. It was about Evelyn projecting her own financial trauma onto my relationship. It was a planned, deliberate financial ambush. A month ago, Sierra texted me. I was wrong. My mom manipulated me. Can we talk? I miss you. I looked at the text. I didn't feel rage or sadness. I felt nothing but a deep sense of relief. I blocked her number without replying. I'm single again, still own my lakefront condo outright, and my investment accounts are untouched. I sleep better now than I did for those 3 tense months when I was constantly justifying why I wouldn't simply hand over everything I'd worked for to someone who hadn't even signed a marriage certificate. People ask if I'm bitter. I tell them no. I'm just $25,000 smarter, $1.2 million richer, and significantly less engaged.